This is Verified Human, dialogues exploring psychology, spirituality, culture, and the questions that matter most.
Casual.
Very casual.
Yeah. So the path.
The path.
The path is extremely part of your life now in a very, very embedded way. And that's been kind of a shift for me too. I'd say the past 4 years, it's become really prominent, just like an everyday thing ambiently in my mind. What has been your trajectory with your relationship with spirituality?
Wow. Yeah. My trajectory was, I think, from one extreme to the other extreme.
Yeah.
So it's interesting when I look back because it was not a gradual transition. It was like the divine plucked me out of Maya and dropped me into the heights of the deep end of the spiritual pool, like overnight.
Right.
So I would say it was about 5 years ago. I was living in LA at the time. I was a businesswoman. I had been doing business my entire life. And that is what I had dedicated myself to. Day and night and day, that's all I did. And had a tech company, and we had just sold it. And I was planning to do another company, planning to do the next thing like we always do, because we always want to achieve more and succeed. And, all these expectations from others that thought I was going to have so many companies and a holding company someday and all of that. And my aunt was on the spiritual path, and she just sort of begged me to just take a year off. And I thought that would be, how could I waste an entire year? I already had offers and ideas of companies I was going to launch in multiple things. And she said, just take a year off for yourself. And so after some persuasion, I ended up agreeing and took a year off. And then somehow the spiritual path just naturally happened. I think I was quite bored. So I started to do all of this healing work, but my personality can be a bit extreme. So I started to do, body work, acupuncture. Then I started to do energy work, and I was so fascinated by it. So I started to see healers, and I started to do healing every day. Then I started to read more books on it. And then my aunt had a guru, and I knew, about her guru. She has a healing center in Mexico that I would visit often and see his photos. And she invited me to go meet him. And I thought I was going to a meditation retreat on an island. I was going to relax. I wasn't going there because I thought he would be my guru. So I go to this island off the coast of Spain for a 100-person meditation retreat with her teacher. And I arrive and I end up meeting him and having one of those experiences where you just sort of instantly realize that you're meant to be on the spiritual path.
So yours was an actual instantaneous recognition?
Yeah. So it happened that week. First, when I met him, when he arrived that first day, I was actually, I was a bit nervous. Everyone there knew him. I was new people normally wouldn't go on a retreat with a enlightened master.
Right.
Like it's experienced.
Was it an intimate
devotees?
retreat?
Yeah, most everyone was his devotees, and so I had never even met him before, if you can imagine. And I remember hiding in the back of the group. I'm just kind of observing everyone arriving and seeing what's happening, and quite shy. And he arrives and he comes out of the car very majestically. And there's this perfect sunset happening behind him. And, I was very awestruck. And he starts to greet people, and he's going through the crowd and through the crowd and through the crowd. And he goes all the way to the very back where I'm hiding. And he comes and stands directly in front of me. And he says 3 words: "Who are you?" Which is very profound, because that is actually the summary of the spiritual path,
right?
Which is realizing who you truly are. So he says those 3 words, and it was an instant instantaneous recognition, but then a few days later, he gave a darshan blessing.
Yeah.
So darshan means divine sight in Sanskrit. And it is when an enlightened master can give a direct blessing to someone. Not all, masters can give darshan. And so he was giving a personal blessing. I went, it was my first time. Again, I didn't really know what to expect. And he gave me the blessing. And then he leaned forward and he said something into my ear that only God could know. And instantly I burst into tears. And it was in Vedic philosophy and Vedanta philosophy, they call it pratyabhijna, which means that which was already realized. So in that moment, it was like the truth realized itself. And it was a direct, deep, deep, deep inner knowing from deep within, a direct recognition that was instantaneously recognized from that experience.
Would you say it's almost like a little bit of a self-realization moment?
I am not entirely sure how to classify it. Ultimately, it's all the grace of God, because to be so sure about something, to have no doubt, and to feel it so deep inside that it's really hard to put into words, because it's such a knowing that I know it as the truth more than I know who I even am. I remember actually after I met my guru and I went back to LA, someone was asking me, about him and, how I felt. And I said, I'm 1,000% certain. And then someone mentioned to me, they said, that's very certain, but that's how I felt.
Yeah, everything just seemed to make sense. Like every single thing just locked in, and it wasn't a concept. It was an integrated knowing. It just
was a knowing.
Beamed as your being.
Yeah, it was a direct knowing, because also I didn't realize that this was somewhat unusual, because normally on the path one has doubts, and then one asks a lot of questions in their mind. Is this path for me? Is this my guru? Will I follow this path? And on and on and on. And I never had ever once any of those questions. Can you imagine? I was not even on the spiritual path. I was fully immersed in the material world as a businesswoman. I go and meet my Satguru and have that experience, and I basically then give up my entire life and devote it to the spiritual path and into service of him and his mission. And I never once asked myself, is he my guru or would I follow this path? Because again, it was the truth. It was direct knowing. It was existence. It just was.
Yes.
And it's really hard to explain and put into words, because also it's more of an unusual trajectory, I would say, because most people have those questions and those doubts. And for whatever reason, I don't know how to explain it more than the grace of God when you don't have those doubts, because it allowed me to dive fully into something. And I think ultimately we're all longing to be that certain about something in this world, or that certain about something in our life. And that's how certain that I am. And so that's what I have followed and what I've dedicated my life to since.
I mean, it's the definition of devotee. It's the definition of being devoted, right? There's always this longing to be devoted to something, your mission in the material world, it's your mission, it's your company's mission. And then in the spiritual world, it's dharma. It's just the understanding of dharma, whatever that is. So that's a beautiful, beautiful trajectory. But yes, it is not common, right? Because usually it's a journey of some sort. There could be some moments of recognition, but usually it's a journey. So how did everyone else react? Everybody who knew you before that moment, and they were now reacting to this other moment, and
it was quite shocking. Also because maybe a year before meeting my Satguru, I was still drinking alcohol and I was not a vegetarian. So quickly those things just changed overnight. I stopped drinking. I stopped eating animals. I met a guru, found a guru, started the spiritual path, started meditating. And again, it was very drastic. It was not a gradual a gradual thing. And so I think that it was definitely hard. And what was interesting for me to reflect back and what it was like that first year with my guru was extremely intense. I actually essentially met him for the first time on that island, and then COVID hit. And so there was no ability to see him. And as you know, everyone was stuck in different places in the
Right.
world. And the first place he went was Mauritius, which is the island that he was born at, and where he went into samadhi and many, many miracles at his childhood home, which is now a temple there. And I ended up, that is where I went my second time ever seeing him. And I went and had the grace to stay at his temple home, and I became a devotee and to dive into the teachings and the path and to learn everything. And then I came back to LA, and it was very interesting to observe. The hardest part for me was that I had spent my whole life crafting this perfect external identity
Right.
that everyone would like or acknowledge. And it's so interesting because we're almost trained to do it since we're young. And I grew up with a family that has a business, and I started working there young. And since I was really young in general, I was always interested in success and achieving and accomplishing and studying and winning and competing in awards and, popularity and beauty and
Right.
all material world and possessions and houses and cars and jobs and
Yeah.
you name it. That's
Yeah.
what your whole life is built around, especially in America.
And for a very high achieving family, right? This was
Yeah.
something that was also in your lineage of being an entrepreneur and being successful at that.
It was definitely something I was born into.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for it because I've learned so much, and there's a lot of skills that have been crafted over time, of course. But when you look at this external identity and then you realize, wow, I just broke it, and now I have to go face all these people, that was the hardest thing, which is because the ego, it
You have
doesn't,
to reintroduce yourself.
the ego doesn't like that. The ego doesn't want to be questioned. And I cared so much. I didn't realize how much I cared what other people thought about me. And I kept thinking, what are they going to think? Because I was this whole package of a person on the outside, externally.
Yeah.
And now I've changed that identity in a multitude of ways and multifaceted way. So that part was very hard. And honestly, and actually, it's important to go through this process in the beginning of the spiritual path. I had to take time to go inward and to create a strong foundation inside myself with my relationship with God and my own self.
Right.
And then with that strength, go back and reintroduce oneself to the world. So
And face the projections and face the questions and the tension.
that's what I did.
Yeah.
And actually, I was surprised because a lot of people ended up saying, wow, it's so inspiring, inspiring. I didn't expect to inspire people in that way. And then, of course, naturally, the people that didn't understand or potentially judged kind of drift out of your life. But it was definitely, I think some people are still digesting it.
Absolutely. Because it's one thing to be inspired in the very beginning, because it's a good thing, right? A spiritual path. How could you not support a friend who's going on a spiritual path? But then it's like, oh, wait, this is sticking a little bit longer than I thought. And in fact, you're going deeper and deeper, and the language changed, the way that you speak changed, right? Like everything changes once you really actually decide to step on the path and just walk it, because there is no going back once you really get that side of you turned on.
No.
So you saw some people that may have been supportive in the beginning maybe were less supportive towards the middle and end of it, like how did you see that kind of a shift over time?
Yeah, I think that because it was such a drastic transition, and then I kind of disappeared for a year or two.
Yeah.
where when I went through that process of going inside and I spent a lot of time with my guru and I was going through purification and doing a lot of sadhana and transforming, because obviously there's a lot of transformation that was needed there. Then when I sort of reintroduced myself to, let's call it the material world,
Yeah.
I think that it was nice. I'm still adjusting, I'll be honest, because when I go back in those same circles and into the social settings and to the networking settings and to the event circuit of everything that you're, I'm sure, aware of, I don't necessarily enjoy it as much, but I go into it in a service mindset now. And so if I can share about my life in a way that inspires others to transform their own life, then I love to do that.
Yeah.
So now I kind of look at it in a different way as service, and normally I just go where I feel that resonates and where I can be of impact.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, in that I was very much so in the material world as well. Grew up in New York City, born in Manhattan, and there's just a lot of status here that you're just, kind of born into, in that you see a lot of diversity, you learn about a lot of things in the world, but you're surrounded by it. So you go to a coffee shop, you bump elbows, and all of a sudden you're talking next to a really successful person, and then, networking happens, right? That's New York networking is just living. So I got into some interesting scenes growing up, and I was very much so, I'd say, Rajasic, right? Rajasic is kind of a lifestyle, and it's a mindset where you're just, indulging in the experiences of life. And that was definitely me. Much more hedonistic, tasting menus, shows, theaters, dating, like the whole thing in a very more Rajasic manner. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot of things, but that was definitely more of my New York life. And then I left all that about 4 years ago. And I went through...
so only 4 years for you.
4 years ago. Yeah. I was always on a
thought longer.
spiritual, path in some ways. I was born into a Hindu family. I went to the temple growing up. But I was always the kid in the corner on my phone, didn't really understand what was going on. And that's because I saw the rituals, but I didn't understand the intention. I didn't know the context of the rituals. And then I also saw it as more of a social club, right? Because I saw the aunties and uncles gossiping about each other. And I was like, this is a social club. This is not a, religious or spiritual setting. So I had some judgment, in it. And then later on in life, when I went to India for the first time, because I was born in New York, so I was a first generation, Bengali American. Then I went to India for the first time and really dove in myself, and it completely transformed my life. I went to India 7 times in the first 2 years. So every other month I was in India for like a month at a time, and I just really dove into everything and deconstructed all parts of myself. The material world and doing well in the corporate world is beautiful, because you really gain a lot of insights of, your identity, your confidence level, how to speak to people, but it makes you disconnected. And I was very disconnected for myself. I would say my throat chakra was not very open, right? I wasn't fully, expressing. I wasn't really connected to my heart. I wasn't really feeling, all the emotions. I wasn't as vulnerable with people. I wasn't as open and honest with people, just because I didn't really know how I was feeling myself. So that's what completely transformed for me when I, got into Ayurveda, just did a lot of physical cleansing, and just went through a massive ego death, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Which then went into like a bunch of other micro ego deaths. So it was just a whole process, I'd say, the past 6 years, but more so the past 4 years of a deconstruction of self, again and again and again. And then a rebirthing, and then another deconstruction. And it's like, okay, I think we're good now. And then all of a sudden you get humbled again.
It's interesting because Guruji often says that we have to die while we're still alive, but it's having these ego deaths. And, our ego is very sophisticated.
Yeah.
So you don't, there's not just one ego death, there's a multitude of ego deaths, and you're constantly looking at the ego and seeing where it can pop up in such subtle ways.
Yes. And I think the word ego could be misunderstood. My definition of ego is actually it's your reality because your ego is made up of your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, your biases, your perceptions. And it also is affected by how you're interpreting the world and how you're expressing into it, right? So your ego is all of that. And when you go through an ego death, it's basically a break. It's a break of reality. And then that break then sparks pretty much like a whole collapse of everything else that was part of that reality. So an ego death, the reason why you have it so many times in life is because after you have one ego death, you kind of form another reality in your mind. So the ego simply transforms. Obviously, the ego doesn't fully die. It's an ego death and an ego rebirth. And so the idea is to constantly die and rebirth the ego in a more harmonized, more whole manner. So yeah, I've literally probably gone through 7 different actual ego deaths, I'd say, in the past few years. And that's just really like confronting all these different things, these defense mechanisms, these what you think is real all the time. But if you do that, you can transform so quickly. You know, the idea of transformation being something that takes forever, it's a lifelong practice of transforming, but transformation, these like spurts of transformation, like how you went from a material, very, very material person to a spiritual person that's living in the material world to then kind of, I mean, it's a constant deconstruction of that. So
For sure.
yeah, change can happen very quickly as long as you lean in.
Yes, for sure.
And I think people that are very kind of successful in the material world, they can bring that kind of yang energy into the spiritual world, because that's ultimately what it is, this kind of yang energy to keep going, that propels you to keep going. So I think, you know, that's not surprising to me that you went from one extreme to the other, because I see that in the spiritual world a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And you just summarized it well, because honestly, you just have to keep going.
Yeah.
Because it's endless transformation, endless for the entire lifetime.
I had an interesting experience because when I was going to India back and forth, I was sharing a lot of these insights and self-reflections online, and that ended up sparking a lot of resonance from people that were going through different parts of their journey. And I labeled it as like the phoenix, right? Because I'm a Scorpio, and in astrology, there's different levels or stages of a Scorpio. And at the very end, the stage is Phoenix, which is finally burning your attachments, which is very hard for a Scorpio to do because we are really like just kind of born with a certain intensity and depth, I'd say. Like everything feels more intense. That's part of the beauty of the Scorpio experience, but even the Scorpio, the sign, represents transformation from an astrological perspective. So I do think that people even are born into their perfect design for what they're supposed to do in that human life. Like there's a reason why you're born into like your avatar, right? Your avatar is perfectly designed for what your dharma is in this human lifetime.
For sure. Yeah.
So how have you made sense of your avatar in this
avatar?
lifetime? Yeah.
I don't normally think of it that way, but you mean my nature or my
your
being?
avatar, like your being, like your actual being. Like why were you born in this family, in this body, in this, essence? Like have you thought about that?
Oh yeah, for sure. And I've had some clues of past lives, and like you get clues here and there, and you can piece together your nature, and yeah, I've made sense of it. But
Well, I've had to think about that quite a bit for me because some people, they discover their identity, right? Who they are. I always kind of knew, like, I was like, wow, this is interesting that I'm here in this version, in this reality. I always felt like my avatar was like a lot bigger. Like, I was like, okay, so I'm in a sweet, petite body of a female this time. And, it was such an interesting...
oh, so you experienced being the observer.
Oh, yeah.
Like in your own body when you were young.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we just call it different language
Okay.
than avatar. Yeah.
Yes. Well, the avatar is really just kind of what you're born in.
Yeah.
And walking with in this 3D reality. So I had to make sense of mine a
Yeah.
little bit because I was like, this is interesting because it did feel different
Mm-hmm.
than what my spirit felt like.
Yeah, I went through an experience like that also when I was quite young. I started to get the feeling that I wasn't from here,
Yeah.
and that I didn't want to be here, but I wasn't in a depressed way. But it was constant. It was like a constant repeat feeling where I would then ponder, why am I here? Where am I from? Where do you go when you die? And it was repeat, repeat, repeat for many, many, many years. And I never knew that feeling, what that meant until later, then understanding the spiritual path and the soul and reincarnation and this material reality and all of those things. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely as a child was already observing those things.
And it's so interesting to have that feeling of being the observer, but also being here, right? Because I do feel that duality. I am still an observer, but I'm observing humanity while being a human. And so it's this interesting experience.
It's amazing to be an observer, and it's actually, one of the goals of the spiritual path. If
Yeah.
you look at the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is instructing Arjuna, he does, because Arjuna is able to go into the middle of the battlefield and say, okay, guide me, and I'm going to observe. I'm going to observe this world, and I'm going to observe my positive traits and my negative traits. It's not an easy space to get to that place where you say, I am an observer and I want to be an observer, because in that place you have the willingness to change and the willingness to transform. But it's actually a grace. It's a grace to be able to say you're an observer, but you may think, oh, that's just a natural thing for me, or I've always been that way. But it's a very critical component of the spiritual path, and it's one thing that I think a lot of people struggle with, because it's that willingness to go and say, okay, I'll be in an equanimous state, and I'm willing to look at myself, the positives and the negatives, and I'm willing to be guided, and I'm willing to transform. So I think it's amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's detachment,
Yeah.
right? Detachment is the space in between. And that is a space that I've had to be very comfortable with very young, because I didn't have any other realities. I actually don't know what it's like to really be, like, to think that this is actually fully real. But as an observer of humanity and as a human, I can understand it. So it's almost like I can feel realities, right? But at the same time, it's such an interesting thing when you are in the observer space all the time, because it allows you to kind of choose, right? It allows you to kind of just sit in this middle space, and this is the space where anything happens, right? But again, that took me a long time to get the language for what that was. That was the past 4 years is when I had better language for it.
Well, that's a true state of a yogi, is to be able to come into New York City, with all of these sensory inputs, and to stay inside in an equanimous, balanced place. That's literally what the whole spiritual path is, to try to get to that state.
Exactly. And it's a good way of putting it, because I talk about being like a yogi in the 3D world, because ultimately the spiritual path, I think a lot of people can talk about it from a higher level, like this abstract higher level, or if you're talking about dimensions, 3D, 4D, 5D, like this 5D space of non-duality, which I love. Like I am all about that non-dual space, which is why I talk a lot about Shiva, right? Because Shiva kind of represents this like field. But I always felt like my avatar is supposed to be the yogi in the 3D world. So a lot of it, so
You have to be.
you have to be.
Because the thing is, you don't go when you die and then go to heaven.
Yeah.
You are in heaven now. You can attain that state inside yourself.
Right.
That's what being a true yogi is. In the here and now, fully in the material world, fully grounded in this material reality.
Yeah.
You can't achieve that state with half grounded. And that's why many people struggle on the spiritual path, because it tends to lead to ungroundedness, where they're flying around in all these esoteric concepts and plant medicines and their ego and spiritual ego and all of these things. But truly, to walk the spiritual path in the highest state, you have to be fully grounded in this material reality, fully rational, and in an equanimous state, and you can achieve the state of experiencing heaven on earth. In Vedic philosophy, we call it Vaikuntha. Now.
Yeah.
You can achieve it now, and you have to achieve it now. When you die, it's too late.
Absolutely.
It's not you're going to go somewhere and then God is going to come take you and you're going to go to the highest states. No, you have to achieve it now.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think that the whole entire purpose is to be integrated, right? The entire purpose is to have these 5D concepts, 4D, 3D. It all has to be embodied in the now. And it's not levels. It's not like steps where, okay, I'm this now and I'm that later. They all work at the same time. So there's this understanding of multiplicity that I think is the hardest thing to understand on the spiritual path. And specifically with Hinduism, it is a very cosmic spirituality. So of course, I think that Hinduism is very different than the Abrahamic religions out there, right? The Abrahamic religions out there do make it a little bit easier to understand the 3D world because they use different terminology, right? It's a whole different way of looking at things. Hinduism is really, really multifaceted. And
multifaceted probably doesn't even do it justice.
It's infinity.
It's infinity.
It's infinity. The best way to describe it is infinity because there is no way actually to describe it because it's just the best way that I can is a consciousness because it's literally an awareness and that's what makes somebody a Hindu is an awareness. It's an awareness that you are connected to this greater thing around you. So that's as best as I can go when it comes to describing Hinduism.
Yeah, essentially to walk the path, to acknowledge that you are a soul and a spark of the divine that is in this material reality, and how you get to the end goal, which is to realize who you truly are, which is to realize your divinity. There's many, 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 many infinite paths there inside Hinduism, which is why it's so beautiful, because you can resonate with the divine feminine and the divine masculine. But ultimately, the path I'm on is a Bhakti path. So for me, it's all about relationships. It's your personal relationship with the divine. And the amazing thing about that path, because, we've talked about a lot of different concepts, but when you talk about spirituality and, transcending your mind and transforming your mind and having ego deaths and detaching yourself, there's obviously a lot of, sadhana and practices that you can do to achieve that. And many philosophies would say, oh, you can go to the Himalayas and restrict your senses almost in a way. But in the reality of the world, we have to be in the world.
Yeah.
But the beauty of bhakti is that you divinize everything you're doing. You don't restrict or refrain necessarily. So you divinize your senses and everything that you have in your life. And it makes it actually easy in that sense. But the path of bhakti, as Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, which is the highest path, it is very simple, because that simple relationship can be expressed in so many ways and in such a simple way. But also it is not easy in a sense that to love God truly it's not an easy thing.
Absolutely not.
It's the hardest thing you'll ever attempt to do.
And this is because the spiritual path is a path of actually expediting your circumstances, your lessons, your karma. I like to talk about karma. Karma, I don't talk, karma is not a punishment.
Yeah.
Right? Karma is simply an exercise. It's an exercise. It's something that you are bound to go through.
We all have to make action.
Because you have to go through it, right?
Yeah.
Karma is neutral, and it's just something that you go through. And it's very specific to each person. And I think the spiritual path is essentially saying, I consent to expediting my karma and my exercises, bring it on. Because you're leaning into a lifestyle of transformation. And so what got me kind of out of this Rajasic mindset and more so towards where I'm at now, which I would say is transitioning towards a more sattvic, lifestyle. And the sattvic lifestyle is very much one that's much more noble and pure, just really clean food, clean everything. it's an interesting way that Hinduism kind of describes it, because it describes it as kind of levels of like lifestyles, right? There's a food, there's a mindset, there's a relationship. And so you have tamasic, rajasic, sattvic, right? So as somebody who is like a former rajasic person that's kind of now a rajasic sattvic,
That's a nice way to put it.
like if I'm gonna have like
We
vegan
all are,
food,
though.
it's gonna be good vegan food, you know? It's gotta be nice sattvic food. But back then I was optimizing my life for experiences,
Okay, interesting.
so it was all about, I want to learn and I want to experience, and I want to experience all of what it is to be human. So the Rajasic kind of mindset is more of one that's optimizing for human experiences, feelings, different types of taste, your senses. You're optimizing for like the richness of experience. Sattvic lifestyle is different. And I'm not going to say that I'm fully there yet either. I'm transitioning. But it's one that's more optimizing for a specific outcome.
Interesting. It's that you bring up the senses, because Guruji recently told me to withdraw the senses inward like a tortoise. And then it had me thinking, because actually, when you look at what goes into your mind is coming through the senses.
Yeah.
So the sense objects through the senses is then feeding your mind, and that's where your mind is either negative or positive. And then ultimately, if you're on the spiritual path, you're first of all trying to purify and transform your mind.
Yeah.
And so it's, to withdraw the senses inward, it's not an easy thing.
And it doesn't mean eliminate the senses.
No.
The particular language is take the senses, but send the energy inwards versus feeling the senses on the outside. And that's more Rajasic, right? Rajasic is a little bit more experiencing the senses of life, which is a beautiful thing. And then, when you take that and you can go inwards, it's another beautiful thing. Like, so when I left New York and the corporate world and a relationship and pretty much everything 4 years ago, moved to Miami, started over. Leaving the corporate world, I was making a certain, I had a certain lifestyle, right? That
I think
was
we all
used
did.
to. And then leaving the corporate world, going on the spiritual path, and really purposefully practicing a different lifestyle, that was a big thing for me. I had to rewire my relationship with resources.
Oh, for sure.
Rewire my definition of fun. Rewire my definition of everything, right? One of the most humbling experiences ever, to go from corporate world to founder, like real bootstrapped founder life, and just now be on a mission. Amazing, but like humbling. Very, very humbling.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So when I was living in LA right before I met my guru and went on the spiritual path, I'd always had all these goals, and, one was to sell a company. So we sold it. And then I had this dream car I wanted, this Porsche 911 convertible. So I got that, and I wanted to live in Venice. And then I wanted all these, so I had this, every material thing that you could want. And then I thought, well, is that really making me happy? And do I need it? And then I met my guru, and some months after all of those other experiences I had, I went back to LA, and this voice told me to sell everything and to become nomadic.
Wow.
And I followed it. I literally sold everything. I sold the car, the house, the clothes, the bags, the whatever else furniture had accumulated, and put everything in, I think, about 8 boxes, which is pretty crazy. I put it in a storage unit. So I just let go of everything, detached from it, and then became nomadic and traveled the world with my guru for the next few years. But it was very nice, because you realize all those things, they're just holding you back and, weighting you down, and you don't need any of them, because honestly, all I needed was in one suitcase bag.
Yeah.
And then I have this very large 1920s mansion in upstate New York, which
Stunning.
I also didn't want, by the way. It was
Such
a
a
divine
sanctuary.
orchestration, but it's funny, because I didn't even ever want a house again.
Yeah.
Because once you detach from those things, you realize you don't need them. They're not going to impact your internal happiness and your internal state.
Yes. Yes. And well, to be fair, you have made that home into a beautiful temple.
Yeah. It's
So the
a
whole thing
living
is really a
temple.
temple. Yeah. It was a beautiful space. And Guruji's there, very present.
For sure. Very
Very
present.
like it's palpable.
Very present. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways to walk the path. I mean, one is you had the specific experience of meeting a guru.
Yeah.
And that guru really set you up, right? It just
He did.
turned it on and boom.
He set me up.
You were set
It's a
up.
good, I've never phrased it that way, but I love it.
And for me, I never had a guru. So it was a lot of self-talk. So a lot of my life has been self-reflective. So yes, the observer thing was helpful in that way. And I of course there's a reason for everything. But yeah, I remember just growing up and had a lot of self-talk, a lot of that, and always knowing and feeling this core identity that was kind of nameless, shapeless, but it was really driving this like I had this urgency to build and to give, like this urgency to have this impact, which to me, I just use the language dharma. It's just dharma. I came into recognition of that during this past 4 years, which then ended up kind of transforming into Om.
Yeah, I want to talk more about how you devised this beautiful project and how that came to be.
Well, Om stands for our highest mantra. And really, as I was kind of going back and forth, India and New York and Miami and, just sharing my journey online, again, this audience kind of grew naturally and started resonating with it. So then I would hold these Zoom calls. Every Wednesday I held a Zoom call. And I would have all these different people in the room. Literally, all the different types of people. People, millennials, kind of my age, younger. I had the father of 2 daughters, the mother who's going through divorce, the gay kid, the straight kid, the conservative. We're talking every race, religion, political view. And that's difficult to do. But it dawned on me that the one thing that we all have in common is this experience of ego death. And so all of a sudden, it just hit me that there needs to be a social club where people that are actually really leaned into the lifestyle of transformation are together and just discussing the path, the craziness, the crazy human experience, which is a beautiful experience. So these conversations really sparked Om. So I wanted to create something that was really rooted in the 3D because it was important that people knew that it has to be something that can be understood by everybody. So nothing that has like too much of difficult language, nothing that's too woo-woo, too esoteric. I'm very metaphysical. I'm very woo-woo. But like Om is going to be very grounded because that's the whole point.
It has to be.
Really be grounded. And just have all of this information that helps people kind of spark and plant that seed from mental, emotional, physical, and energetic level. And then recently, I came into contact with this doctor, Dr. Jeff Sutherland, and this lab out of Boston, and they're doing some incredible work with the biofield and frequencies. And this is still kind of new, it's
Definitely
still
new.
Controversial how people think about this. But the reality is we know that energy is real. We know that physics has done a lot of amazing work to prove and show certain things that really debunk a lot of other things in science. So it's a controversial subject of frequencies, but I think that people are understanding that frequencies are real. This is why you have crystals, right? Certain crystals emit certain frequencies. Red light therapy has a specific frequency. PEMF mat, like that's all, this is all in the field now.
Very trendy now.
Of frequency,
Yeah.
right? What else? I mean, 5G, if you look at it from a different perspective, 5G, a lot of people know that that's pretty strong. It's not the best for the human condition, but we have it everywhere. We have it everywhere because we have, AI and all this stuff that's happening with longevity. So technology, as it grows, is going to also increase the level of kind of radiation frequency that we live in. And we, as human beings, are extremely sensitive, right? We're super sensitive. We're sensitive to light. We're sensitive to sound. We're sensitive to someone's energy. We're sensitive to our thoughts, to our subconscious thoughts. All of this stuff affects us on a physiological level, right? And so the whole idea is to help create the right conditions for people to transform and to just be supportive, just on a very simple level, be supportive. So we have integrated frequency therapy into our offering to people. So we're using the latest, most advanced kind of frequency technology that's available to the public, and we are helping harmonize people's biofields. So it's nothing that goes into the genes. There's nothing that alters anything. It just creates the supportive kind of frequencies in your biofield that we can measure. We can,
amazing.
There's evidence behind everything. And this has been going on forever.
It's another form of longevity, essentially.
Yes.
If you look at the longevity marketplace, which is, of course,
it is in longevity
booming.
because we're doing specifically a longevity treatment. So it is going to optimize your age. And the way that it works is that it actually targets the cells of your body, right? So Dr. David Sinclair and a lot of other scientists, they've come out and have showed that aging is actually more cellular than it is physical.
Yeah,
So it's not like a physical thing that happens. It's actually like the body stops like working internally, right? So it's like you have a bunch of cells in your body. If you get hurt, the cells in your body calls for help. Hey, come down here and like let's help repair this person, right? And as you get older, that the signal loses, right? So they're not able to call for help. So that's why recovery slows down. Skin is less elastic. All of this. So we're using specific frequencies that are going to help reverse age the cells.
amazing.
Yeah,
Can't wait to try.
yeah. No, I've been on it for a year, over a year actually now. Yeah, over a year. And we do other things too. We do personalized protocols. So if you have anything going on with your kidneys, your liver, like parasites, every single thing has a measurable frequency.
Of course.
So you can neutralize them. You can harmonize the body's condition in a non-invasive way. And so that's cool. So we're basically doing that and then a bunch of other things to support people.
Amazing.
Yeah. The long-term kind of thought about it is to really create this infrastructure to track evolution kind of internally using epigenetics, because epigenetics is just the environment that you're in, things that create stress. So if we can help kind of get people on track and then use ultimately frequencies and coaching, just a mixture of things, then we can actually help people over time evolve.
Beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. So that was completely just something that came to fruition in the past few years because it was an extension of my own evolution. So my own evolution had me on my own kind of journey, not of like biohacking, I'd say, but really kind of spiritual and biohacking, to really kind of clean my body. And
did you feel like it was divinely guided in a sense, or what in signs, and you felt like it was your dharma to bring this forward?
Well, the entire time I'm also doing my own versions of pujas. I mean, I have a chanting practice that I do every day. I mean, I listen to frequencies. I was very much so in communication with Shiva. So Shiva is one of the many deities that we have. And Shiva has 108 different forms, just like a lot of the deities.
I remember in the beginning when I learned, I was like, what do you mean 108 names and forms of every one? Why isn't there just one?
Yeah.
It's infinity.
It's infinity.
But yes.
And from a metaphysical perspective, it makes sense because we know that we live in multiverse, right? We know that we live in multiple dimensions right now. This is why some people can see things that we can't. Some people can hear things that we can't. It's real. We live in multiple dimensions. And so all of these different dimensions have different forms of us. So that's kind of how I see Hinduism. It's infinity because it represents different forms of each other, just like we are. So Shiva always called to me because Shiva has a form that's Ardhanadi. That's kind of half man, half woman, Shiva Shakti. And I always felt that very much so inside. This balance, this very yin-yang balance, this two-spirited nature. So, and then Shiva also represents detachment, ego death, dissolution. Personality-wise even, I kind of resonate with Shiva because it's very Scorpio. It's very kind of, stillness. But of course, Shiva has other forms. Like, not all of them are the ones that's just a yogi. There's also Natharaj, right? Which is like the one that's like dancing. So, it's an endless journey, really. But it was really, guided by Phoenix, who I call like my higher self, and really Shiva. And now that I'm kind of in this community of Bhakti, because I've been now
kind of.
I'm in.
Yeah, you learned Kriya.
I did. I learned Kriya. So I have this interesting thing now where, okay, so my understanding of Guru has shifted because of this, right? Because before I had kind of my own internal relationship with my own internal Guru, which was Phoenix and Shiva. And I would communicate and like all this stuff, do a lot of kind of darshans with myself in the mirror, like, you know, and I was really kind of cultivating my own private practice. But when I moved to Miami, I was looking for community. I wanted to like, you know, maybe there's kirtans or something. And then I stumbled upon this group that happened to be a lot of Russians that were just practicing the Bhakti path. And I was like, this is cool.
This is cool.
So
Wow,
I went
didn't
to a
realize that
yagna.
was your gateway.
That was it. That was it. I went to a yagna. I met Swami Chitananda
Amazing.
there. And we had one little 5-minute conversation. And Swami Chitananda just like, come to the ashram. And I was like, yeah, I'd love to talk about, you know, this whole ego death and this. And so that was it. Like a couple weeks later, I'm at the ashram fielding with Swami Chitananda and just talking about the evolution. So this is my whole thing. So I guess Guruji has been around, right? And Guruji represents like more the Vishnu energy and the Vishnu path, right? And Vishnu is very specific to Dharma, right? Vishnu represents balance and Dharma. So I find it interesting that after like, you know, Shiva resonates with me internally almost as like an inner kind of deity. But it's interesting that as I'm so like pursuing my dharmic path that Guruji's come up and is around.
Well, technically it's the path of Vaishnavism. And ultimately that philosophy is just saying that we believe that Vishnu is the highest attainment of Sri Hari, which is another name for God in Sanskrit. But many people on that path have Ishtadevs, which are Shiva, the Divine Mother, Jesus Christ, various forms of the Divine Mother, various forms of
And do you want to define what
deities.
Ishtadev is?
Ishtadev is your personal deity. So in Sanskrit, mine, Ishta is mine. And it is the presiding deity over your life.
Interesting.
And so when you have a Satguru, so Paramahamsa Vishwananda or Guruji is a Satguru, and you take initiation as his devotee, you can ask him your Ishtadev and he can see what is your Ishtadev. So my Ishtadev is Krishna, but a very specific form of Krishna, Giridhari, which is the uplifter of the mountain. So that is, you know, for me, he's everything. He is like the king of my heart.
That's very sweet.
Actually literally behind us
We
right
love
now. he's here.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't see this, but we have a lot of beautiful deities supporting us behind us right
because
now.
again, it's all about your personal path to the divine.
Right.
And so even the Divine Mother, for example, her role is to bring everyone to the feet of Sri Hari, to the feet of Vishnu, to the feet of Krishna, or the various incarnations that Vishnu takes. But also Shiva was the greatest bhakta of Vishnu.
Absolutely.
The greatest. And in Hanuman is an incarnation of Shiva. And there's many such beautiful stories. And the thing about the Bhakti path is it's all about that relationship. So if you've resonated with Shiva, the greatest bhakta ever on earth, that's incredible. Yeah. Because Shiva is worshiping Vishnu and Vishnu is his bhakta. They reside in each other's hearts.
Right.
So essentially,
it's
again,
all
it's all infinity. it's all love and infinity.
Absolutely. And it is true, like, because the deities do worship each other. They respect each other, you know, so there's a lot of that. And so that's been something that's been on my mind because I was, you know, I've always had this idea of guru that, hey, it's kind of dangerous to outsource everything to an external person. And I had that kind of resistance that I was working with. But I mean, it's just interesting that I keep being kind of guided in certain ways.
But you call a guru an external person.
Right.
But a Satguru is a divine being.
Yes.
By definition. I mean, a Satguru is an enlightened being they have fully realized the divine, they are a tattvadarshi.
Right.
So that's what Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita. Because if, like, I'm not a tattvadarshi and you're not a tattvadarshi, so I don't fully know the divine. I haven't fully attained God realization. And so one needs, in essence, a guidance from someone like that.
Yes.
Every great saint that's ever existed had a guru. The thing is, and I'm not saying, that you're doing this, but often people, when there's this resistance to the guru because they're like, no, I don't think I need one. I've had someone tell me, in this incarnation, I don't need a guru. But the thing is, it's a blessing.
Yeah.
Like, it's absolutely unbelievable rare,
Absolutely.
extremely rare to even be incarnated with a Sat Guru on earth, let alone take his darshan, let alone receive Kriya Shaktipada initiation from a living Kriya master, who Guruji happens to be also a Kriya master and a Sat Guru. Extremely rare. Like, millions of lifetimes you could wait for that. And so that was the interesting part, because, of course, before I joined the path, I didn't actually even know what a guru was. I didn't know anything about Hinduism and gurus. And I think that there's often this resistance because, everyone wants to be like, I can realize my own inner guru. And that's true. But the thing is, it's a blessing to have a teacher and a guide, and we all need one. Every great saint has had one. Even Jesus Christ had a guru. It's not talked about.
Yes.
But these are, interesting things.
Absolutely. And this is why my perception and my all of this stuff has shifted, because it's like, okay, I do believe that everyone needs to have some guidance. Honestly, you have to have something. It's not even someone. It's something to kind of look up to. And so I think that I now understand what it means to kind of have a guru, right? And I also think, to be fair, there's so many different types of gurus. So it's different when you have a Sat Guru with a T, Sad Guru with a D, right? So like
that's a name of a guru, yeah.
Yeah, so what is that?
Yeah. So Sat Guru, S-A-T, is a type of guru, and there's only 5 on earth at any given time. 3 are known to the world and 2 are not known to the world. So Sat Gurus are enlightened beings. They're born with the fullness of the divine in them. Guruji is a Sat Guru. They're extremely rare. Extremely. But, we of course think that it's a casual thing and, you can meet a Sat Guru so easily.
Yeah.
But they're not. Actually, it's not even known who the other 2 living Sat Gurus are. Sat Gurus.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting. But also, like, now I realize, so it's like water. So we all know that water is amazing. We all want water. We can all experience some water. We can we can sip water. We can go experience rain. But you go to a guru because they're like jugs. They have like a direct channel into the ocean. They're like a jug that can pour water into you, right? And then you have like a swami who's like a cup, who like has been around.
Way to put it.
Who's been around the guru for so long that they can actually almost channel from them. And it's like a cup. So you go to the temple, you go to a swami, or you go to a guru because you know that water is amazing for you. And so if you can get more for your path, why wouldn't you? So that kind of shifted the way that I look at things. And now I'm actually like really open and considering that, because I think it's almost important. It's almost like necessary, quite frankly, to have a certain spiritual protection, because that's also what it comes with, right?
Yeah.
Having a guru comes with certain things. Yeah. Yes, it comes with certain disciplines and certain responsibilities that you can or you don't need to do, but ideally you do. But the benefit is you have this kind of spiritual protection, which I think is a very important thing.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, guru just means teacher. And so we have a lot of different gurus. But I think the other beautiful delineation with a Sat Guru, and we talked about this earlier because you were like, was that a self-realization moment?
Yeah.
But so their self-realization is one let's call it step on the spiritual path of realization, but there's actually another form of realization beyond it called God realization.
Right.
So there's many self-realized beings. Many have achieved that. Very, very, very few have achieved God realization. And a Satguru can give one God realization. That's,
Wow.
yeah, people don't realize. And so I think the other big thing, even when I, analyze myself and when I look at different people when, they might be resistant to the path with a guru and what a Satguru does, the thing is, we can only see and work on so much of our own ego. There has to be someone else to show us our own ego. You can't fully transcend your ego without that mirror.
Yeah.
And that is also what a Satguru helps to do. But the thing is, there's many gurus out there, and many of them are actually inflating your ego. They're telling you,
right.
They're selling you things. They're making you feel good and important and special.
Right.
But that's not how you attain God realization.
A Satguru is probably not going to do that all the time.
No, actually, rarely.
Yeah.
To maybe never. Because a Satguru is here for only one thing, for God.
Right.
And for you to attain your relationship with God. That's it. Literally nothing else. They don't need anything from anyone. They don't want anything. They need nothing. They're here to help everyone realize their relationship with God. And that is it. And that's not an easy path because one has to look at their ego. One has to look at themselves. But often when people meet a Satguru and come on the path, it can be very polarizing because it's not easy to walk a path where you're constantly transforming yourself, constantly looking at the ugly pieces of your ego and willing to take when someone calls you out and when you're not special and but these are all things that are so needed in order to awaken humility. Right. Because the thing is, you have to have humility to walk the spiritual path.
Yeah.
And I've looked in the guru marketplace, just more so interesting just to observe how these other gurus market themselves because I've been helping Guruji's mission.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because a lot when I'm listening to them speak, like I can even feel some of their egos.
Absolutely.
So I think when you really look, when you can really see who a Satguru is, they're extremely exceptionally rare.
The energy is
very
different.
And the energy, yeah.
Energy is really different. There really is a softness. There's a lightness to it. It's not dramatic. It's not meant to be dramatic. It's not meant to be a show. It's really meant to be simple, quite simple. And so, it's simplicity is profound, because simplicity is quiet. We talked about this a little bit, how the path is infinite and you're always transforming. It's true because every single time you get somewhere and you have a realization and you finally embody it and you fully integrate it and now you're walking, with it, then all of a sudden you hit another point where the same exercise shows up differently. Maybe the mask is a little bit harder to detect, but then you're looking back at like what you thought you knew from this new vantage point, and you're like, now I feel like this, right? So it's just simply about like expanding your awareness. And at every point you expand your awareness, you have to look back at everything. So that's kind of what it is. Like when something new, you allow something new to come in, now everything has to be revisited because you have a new vantage point that you're looking at everything with.
I like to call it, that game where it pops up and then you hit it and then the other one pops up.
Whack-a-mole?
It's literally whack-a-mole, the transformational path. Because you just finish, you're like, wow.
That's like
gosh,
karma.
I went through that experience and I was working on that samskara and I detached and these qualities and then we're done and then boop, and the next one pops up.
But it's like a different mask, right? The mask is harder to detect. It's like the same exercise with the different, so this is where that discernment just has to get better and better and better and better, sharper, more, not even better, just sharper and
it
sharper.
It does get easier over time.
Yeah.
It does.
Because certain things become a little bit more ambient. Not everything becomes as conscious, right? So the idea is to first be conscious and then have it become an unconscious conscious.
Yeah.
So it does get better. It does get easier. And I'm enjoying it. I really do. I love this path. I swear you can get high off of it. I have gotten sober high so many times.
I think it's called bliss.
Not sober high. Yes, it's true. like frequency parties. You can have these like parties in your mind. I mean, I think that's what we're talking about, which is that heaven on earth feeling, is when you can get to a certain state of being in your mind without the alcohol, without the stimulation, with just different, right?
Just,
Different everything.
Inside yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So now, I mean, it is hard sometimes to go back into the 3D world, but we need to, because we're 3D human beings, we're living in this plane, and clearly we're here for a very 3D mission, right? To live here. But it does get a little more difficult. But to be honest, it's just that there's certain spaces that maybe you need to move out of, right? So your reality has to shift at every single point in your transformational journey. And that can be tough because it is a lot of loss, right? So if you talk about the loss for a second, like I did have to have a mourning period about a year and a half ago. And it wasn't mourning because I was sad about what I knew. Like, in fact, I was humbled and honored, like, wow, I get to do these things. But it was a little bit of just human mourning because it's like, okay, I'm not going to really get to experience a lot of the human stuff. Like, there's certain, like, very simple human stuff that you don't necessarily get to do. And it's fine, but it is what it is.
Get to do or no longer want to do.
Resonate with, those things. Like, there's certain experiences that just will move you out, right? Friendships that you may have had, right? Certain types of hangouts and that were fun then, but you then move out of it, right? And so there is a normal human loss that ends up happening. Because, I'm not going to be, doing the same thing that I was when I was 24.
Yeah. I think it's interesting the way you worded it, but basically desire like feeds your senses.
Yeah.
And then that whole process starts. So ultimately, when you're walking the spiritual path, you want to limit your desires. And so that could be anything from lust to food. And when you're thinking about, okay, all the sense objects with which my senses interact, I have to be careful with what those are because it can go into my subconscious mind and I'm feeding my mind, which is ultimately what I'm trying to transform and transcend. And so it's not worth it to do those things. So there is a lot of loss because ultimately doing a lot of what people would think is very regular and normal for me is not enjoyable.
Agreed.
And, it's not easy. And I think, like Krishna talked about in the Bhagavad Gita, like there's millions that may attempt to know him and maybe a handful will. Yeah. And a handful even know what you and I are speaking about right now.
100%.
Because most people are living to fulfill desires, to fulfill greed, to fulfill all their dreams and wishes and manifestations and desires. And in essence...
And it makes sense because this is actually the Maya that we're in on purpose. Like it's totally purposeful because it's supposed to be something that you have to go beyond, right? Spirituality is when you're going beyond and you're going into this middle ground, this detachment, this nothingness.
Exactly.
And this infinity, right? Because infinity is both nothing and everything. So it's that feeling of infinity, which is that middle space. So I love talking about this stuff because it is something that you can continue to say in different ways and different ways will stick with certain people.
Exactly.
This is why it's important to have certain things worded in multiple different ways because at the end of the day, a lot of it's language. Certain things I've heard are not going to resonate with me just because of the language, right? But if someone says it in a different way, then okay, I get it. I get that. But so yes, there is a lot of loss because you're choosing to optimize your life differently. You're choosing a different experience. Your preferences naturally change. Everything's genuine. That's the thing, is that it has to be genuine. There are people on the spiritual path that will try to emulate certain things, but it's not genuine. They're still feeling the resistance and the loss. And I would say for those people that actually, like, you have to genuinely go through the process. So, like, if you are wanting something still, then you haven't finished out what you're supposed to do. And at the end of the day, everything is neutral and everything's okay because we live in this infinity space. So just continue on the human path and let it be a natural, genuine process. This is my relationship with food now. So I am now plant-based, but I wasn't always, right? Bengali people, we love our fish. We love, seafood. And
definitely.
I think I used to love lamb and all this stuff, right? But back then, when I would hear the arguments for like being pro-vegetarian and it was more like, okay, moral or nutritional, I heard them, but they didn't really resonate with me. Because I can make the argument that, hey, certain blood types, maybe it's healthier like for them to not have plant-based food, right? My blood type is a blood type A, so technically vegetarian diet is better for me. But for some blood types, they need more of a certain thing, right? They need more iron. So that never resonated with me. But then my understanding, as I walked more on the spiritual path, it hit me, which was just karma, you know, just eating karma, right? So if you think about animals, they have dreams, you know, they have dreams. That's it.
We were animals originally. I mean,
Yeah.
we all move through, I think Guruji says 3,000 some odd species.
Oh, yes. I read a book on the science of death and rebirth, or basically reincarnation, and it goes into all of that.
Yeah.
Really. But like we are going to go through every single species, and I actually think the book said was it 8.4? But it
Yeah, it was
also
8.4,
said
you're
like
right.
like rocks
Yes.
and like plants, so it went into everything.
Living beings, yeah.
8.4 million
Yeah,
types of living beings. So
exactly.
our soul is going to go through all that, has gone through all that. So yeah, animals have dreams. I just like, that's what really hit me, is that they dream, you know? And because they dream, they're sentient. They have these feelings and they have these dreams. And if you have dreams, and you know, they have karma, they have stories. So that's what got me, because I didn't want to eat karma. Like I want to now live a life where I am not, you know, unnecessarily accumulating karma. So as much as I can, I want to be mindful of how I'm accumulating, you know, walking through this life when it comes to creating karma.
That's a great way to explain it.
Thank you.
Beautiful way to explain it. Because
you.
even there's certain animal species which their next life is human.
Yeah.
And one of them is the cow. And the cow is obviously extremely sacred in Hinduism and the Divine Mother.
Yeah.
And imagine how much cow is being eaten worldwide and in America. And
Yeah.
there's the karma element, of course, especially if that is considered quite an advanced animal species, an animal being that is going to then become a human in their next life. And so we're eating it. And yeah, I think that is interestingly something that I have a hard time energetically being around now, is even watching people eat meat or being around meat. I didn't expect to be that way because I wasn't, I'm not, you know, gonna go advocate. And, I just followed it because it naturally was my path. And I had a kind of a crazy experience actually when I became vegetarian, which was like an act of God. But yeah, I think that probably is energetically one of the harder things for me to be around, even more so than alcohol, for example.
I get that.
Yeah.
Because if you're really just feeling it on that level, it is tough. It is tough. You have to kind of, we get to witness a lot of people in different states of awareness and different dimensions. We get to witness different dimensions. How beautiful is that? That I can witness you and you're in your own dimension right now, because and you can witness me. And we can go outside to New York City, which we're in.
Yes, we
And
are.
we're going to go walk down and get a matcha.
Oh, yes, we are.
And we're going to witness so many other dimensions because everyone's in their own reality. So,
but they won't even see us.
and that's what's really interesting.
Which is crazy. The last times I've come to New York, I'm like, I don't think anyone can see me. And I'm always like, no, we're not in the same dimension. You don't even speak. They cannot see.
Yeah.
You're just, and it's not bothersome.
Right.
Like I'll look around and nothing's bothering me.
The language for it is like we're living in kind of like glass orbs, like glass, like, you know, like so that's what it is, glass homes, right? We're all kind of in our own glass home, in our own reality. So yes, it will feel like some people just can't see. And you can witness that. You can witness them not seeing. And that's what's interesting about this path. Once you practice detachment, because it's a practice, it's a conscious practice until it's not, yeah, you're just witnessing a lot. And what I found as someone who, you know, used to be more of a speaker, is that I have less to say.
Yes, I actually went through that experience recently because I was helping Guruji with a silent retreat. But I was
That sounds
helping.
perfect.
So I didn't get to go into the silence. But then you realize, wow, what a blessing silence is. And then also realizing it's an inward silence, because we have to be in this chaotic world. At the time, there was, many people around needing things and, constant sensory interaction, but being silent on the inside. And then, not wanting to use as many words. But Guruji was talking about, talking a lot about that.
Well, I mean, yeah, the path is a beautiful thing. I would never give it up for anything else in the world. And it is a path where you have to like be okay with loss, on that human level. But at the same time, it's not loss, because you realize that your whole definition of loss and death, and it changes. Right. So I used to be very uncomfortable with the concept of death.
Oh,
So
interesting.
I was really, but that's because I was thinking about it more in like the Abrahamic sense. So the Abrahamic sense, right, of perspective of death is really weird and uncomfortable. It's very ground. It's very, it's, but in Hinduism, death is really nothing. Like
I'm
it's
excited to die. No, I mean it. I'm like ready. I'm ready.
We heard it first.
Excited. Anyone want to volunteer?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think you are ready. You're like, I can feel it. You're good. You're good. But on a real note.
No, but that's part of the spiritual path.
100%.
Is becoming comfortable with death and
Exactly.
and not being attached to this life and materiality,
Yes.
but being grateful for it, like Guruji said, in an instant tomorrow, right? Could leave this studio and get hit by a car and
And
finished.
you're okay with it because you trust everything happens when it's supposed to happen. So yes, the spiritual path and in the way in Hinduism particularly like really has helped me with that, because in the Bhagavad Gita they say that death is nothing but a soul changing its clothes.
Well, I think the main way to not be afraid of it anymore is to know that you've done. If you can say I feel like I have done everything to live a fulfilled life and put in my maximum effort, because what Guruji says is the regret of the soul is it's like 1,000 stinging needles when you leave the body.
Oof.
And the soul wants to know that it did everything in its power to attain the divine, to attain God, to attain that relationship.
To go home. The
to
soul
go
wants
home.
to go home.
And so if you're living your life as a life of service and you're truly giving your maximum effort every day, then you can say that, I would be okay if it's tomorrow.
Absolutely.
But that's ultimately what it's about.
Because a lot of people who don't have this understanding of death, because Hinduism does a good job of teaching you what death is, and reincarnation. There's all these different faith systems that don't have the concept of reincarnation. So for them, of course it's scary, because it's like a survivalist mechanism, right? You have one shot, one life. You either make it or you're damned to hell for eternity. And that is survivalist, scary, extreme kind of living. And this is an interesting thing, because how can you live life in a calm way if that's kind of in the back of your head, this like constant fear of dying in the back of your head?
Interesting. Yeah. I think it's a big subject for people.
Yeah, it is. But reincarnation changes everything. Knowing that the soul, like everyone's going to go exactly at the right time, even if it's hard to understand and make logic of it. Because logic doesn't even exist.
No, it doesn't exist. And
logic doesn't exist. Somebody told you that this was logical, and therefore that's why you feel it's logical. But logic in itself is a projection from somebody else. Like that's what logic is, right? So, like actually, the way that the world works is illogical. It's not logical. It's infinity, right? It's this randomized kind of way that things are going. There's a synchronicity. There's a divine design, there's an orchestration, but we don't really know the real how and why and what of that orchestration.
Definitely not.
Yeah, that's why, as you were saying, like it's nice to have a guru kind of call out certain things that you would never have probably called out because they're looking at it from a non-linear perspective. They're looking at it from your soul perspective. They could be calling out something that is actually not really part of your human life at that time at all, but they're calling out something your soul needs, right?
And they can do miracles and change the course of your life, change your entire chart, change your destiny. That's what a Satguru can do.
And that's also the purpose of the darshans, right? The darshan, which really is, and I've done it 3 times now, which is awesome. But you do like eye gazing. It's this eye gazing practice with a Satguru, and they're kind of rearranging things for you. Is that what you would say like is happening during a darshan?
Yeah, Guruji's described it a few different times, and actually he doesn't need to do the eye gazing.
Oh, really?
That is just, I think, honestly for the person.
Yeah.
Because he's changed the format of the darshan, so now he's actually doing the darshan with 1,000 people in the room, and he's looking. But he can also do online darshan,
like the
because
virtual
he's
one.
Beyond time and space.
Right. We had a virtual one in New York.
Exactly. But basically, he sees your soul, and he can see all the little specks. We have like little specks of black that need healing, and he can remove one or multiple or whatever the soul is ready to receive and willing to receive. And then there's many miracles, many. I mean, I would need to take hours to explain them all. Healing from cancer, healing, people that were meant to die that didn't die, that are still here. Many of his devotees. There's stories like that.
Yeah. Well, it's a beautiful thing. So I thank you for coming on and basically sharing your entire journey.
Well, yeah, I think we covered everything.
Your entire journey. I guess we'll say like, what does the next chapter like look like for you? Is it more of just kind of walking the path? And yeah.
I love that. It's interesting because a lot of people have been asking me that lately, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I realize that I'm just trying to surrender to the divine will, and I've planned things my whole life. And I think that it's very subtle, this concept of your personal agenda and then the divine agenda. And so I'm in the process of trying to surrender to the divine agenda and to see what comes forward.
I like that.
And in service, everything is of course for service.
Right.
So I've helped my guru's mission and will continue to do that. I teach Kriya.
Yes.
Which is the Kriya yoga that he brought.
Yes, you
forth.
Initiated me in Kriya, which is amazing.
So
and I do that.
I will continue to teach Kriya, and then I'm advising companies, and I have an investment fund.
Yeah.
A lot of different things. But ultimately, this next chapter is about surrendering.
I love that. No, it's true.
A lot of people don't like when I answer that. They're like,
no,
what do you mean?
I get it.
Where are you going to live? Like, are you going to keep your house? Like, what are you going to do? What's your next project? Like, what's your company? Like, what do you do for work? People always ask me that.
They're obsessed.
And I'm like,
people are obsessed with boxes.
I would need an hour to explain to you what I do for work, because it's so multifaceted.
Right.
There's like 10 things.
You're agile. You're being agile to
fully
to the Dharmic mission. I get it. But that's how I describe myself, that I actually live my life in a very agile manner. I used to be a type A planner. Yes. I'm sure you were too.
To an extreme.
I used to plan my breaks every half an hour. Take break. But every 30 minutes.
I have like my own personal cash flow forecast. I still do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good for you. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's how insane we're talking here. So I'm letting go.
Yeah. No, you needed a lot of that. You needed that. But I get it because I'm living my life very agile. I don't plan much. If anything, I'm planning, I swear, probably like a week, a few days out.
Wow, okay. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's beautiful because you get to do so much more that way.
You do.
I've been practicing that for a couple of years now. Living as agile as possible allows me to stay in that detachment state and then intuitively go for things. So
obviously your next chapter is Om.
Oh, that's it. That's my next,
single-pointed minded devotion, which you need to have.
Absolutely. For me, Om is
amazing.
just a materialization of my dharma. It's just like I'm pouring my energy into that. It is how I'm serving, and it's for people. It's for people. That's it. Like, yes, money's great, money's cool, it'll do well, but like most importantly, the mission is just impact and people. So it's led completely differently. I'm building the company completely differently. I'm hiring completely differently. You know, I've been a CEO a couple times, and so I'm you know, even like every single decision I'm making, I'm doing it differently. You know, because it's a dharmic company.
Love it.
That's what it is. You know, but last thing I'll say is what you really are saying, in other words, is basically living as intentionless as possible, because through intentions we can accumulate karma. Right?
Exactly. Through a thought, through a single
it's just
thought.
through a little intention. Like, oh, I see someone attractive. Oh, I want that person
and then,
in my
you know,
field.
it's like
and then, boom.
then desires and, you know, the
Exactly.
whole concept of manifestation. The thing is, everything that you are longing for in your heart, God is already aware of, and he's already planning it out for you, and it's already being happened, and it's just going to materialize how it's meant to materialize, and how I'm best of service in the world is going to come forward, and that is where I'll end up going, and it will be where whatever the divine will is,
and at the right time.
exactly.
Right? A lot
we
of
have a
people's
hard
frustration
time
is
with
about
that time because we're praying to God, and we're like, yeah, you know, I really want that partner and the husband and the child.
Exactly.
And thankfully, I don't have those desires because, you know, everyone wants something right now. And
Yes. And I get it. I'm a Scorpio.
we'll never
I get it.
understand God's
But
time.
time, like, this is where you're constantly humbled, is when you think or you want or you feel something's going to happen by a certain time and it doesn't. That's the root of a lot of disappointment, is this lack of understanding of time.
Yeah, because then you make expectation.
Yeah.
And then expectation leads to attachment, and the whole domino falls.
So you have genuinely moved through those desires of, you know what, family, kids, partner, and now you're on this other path where you're like, it's not something I require.
Yeah, I think that, you know, in order to detach and be in that, you know, internal renunciation state, and we've talked a lot about detachment, is to let go of all those things.
Right.
The thing is, I have such a fulfilled, beautiful, joyful life, and I'm happy eternally.
Right.
In whatever way that God would like me to serve. So if it is with a partner, if it is not, that is up to him.
Absolutely.
I don't know what he's thinking. Everyone wants to know.
Good.
Because how people are always asking me, where's your partner? You know, where's these things?
Yeah.
Where's this at? But it's just funny because I'm not thinking that.
Yeah, and basically you're saying it's invited if it's meant to be. That's all it is. There's
if
no,
it's of
like,
service.
Absolutely.
I always try to bring it back to being of service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. This was beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai
Om Namah
Gurudev.
Shivaya.